Alright, so I made a couple videos about building Dragmag and Rain teams in Black and White, and their links are in the description if you haven't checked them out yet. So the logical conclusion that people have asked for since then is to do a similar video on building sand teams. And obviously that's what I'm doing right now, but I was hesitant because I view Rain and all sorts of weather lists, whether they're the more balanced types, the more hyper offense types, or Dragmag, I view them as flawed inherently because of how difficult it is to deal with the titans of Black and White, specifically Rain and Latios. And I think that the only chance those team styles really have at being consistent and not just being straight up terrible is to stick to those structures. So cores of like 4, even 5 Pokemon. And then you have that one, maybe you have 2 slots to mess around with other options. But generally, I think those teams are really fighting uphill battles that are just not worth it if they don't adhere to those proven structures. Obviously, experimentation should be done, but for the most part, if you're trying to make an effective team in those styles, then you should be following the outlines that are provided in those videos. Otherwise, it's just too difficult to handle those opposing Rain and Latios. And of course, the common threats that you'll see on Sand as well. And I don't view Sand that way. Sand generally has the greatest diversity among it, because when you say a Rain team, or when you say a Dragmag team, and when you see the successful versions of these teams in tournaments like SPL, then you are generally going to be seeing mostly the same team. I mean, there are going to be tweaks in movesets and, final Pokemon, and maybe even the ways you play it a little bit, but for the most part, you are talking, 4, 5, sometimes even 6 of the same Pokemon. Just because there are far more limited ways of making a truly good team within the parameters of what you need to check. Sand is not like that. Now, of course, a lot of good Sand teams are very, very similar, just the same. But there are a lot more viable archetypes, within Sand. And with Rain, it's mostly the same thing. It's like Pharaoh, Tentacruel, and then you pick usually Latios, and then 2 of Keldeo, Thundurus, and maybe some flavor stuff. But for the most part, you're just cycling between those. And Dragmag is like, oh well, this one has Mamoswine, and this one has Salamence over Dragonite, and that one might have Reuniclus. But for the most part, it's different variations on the same team. And of course, Sand has a similar dynamic. But within Sand, then you have different kinds of Sand. And that's why I was hesitant on making this video, because with building Dragmag and Rain, then it's mostly, alright, here's the basic structure within which you operate, and here's where you have some flexibility, but here's what you need, and here's why you need it. And Sand generally has more room with which to be creative and with which to operate, and has more directions it can go in as well, because, well, here's how I'm going to get around that issue of there are too many archetypes and I can't possibly go over all of them without going insane. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to refer you to the places where you can go to see these different kinds of archetypes for yourselves. There you'll see that the Alakazam Reuniclus kind of Magic Guard spam, the Excadrill Landorus kind of balance spam, the more offensive variants with Terrakion and Volturn and offensive Heatran, all those kinds of different Sand teams. I mean, those are just 3 off the top of my head, and that's already 2 more than I would really say for Rain and Dragmag. I mean, when you make a different Rain team, it's still essentially the same idea, whereas Sand has more directions in which you can go. Like a Slowking Breloom kind of balance team as well. I really enjoy that. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you the places where you can go to see these different kind of archetypes in action. You can say, oh, okay, that's this kind of Sand team and that kind of Sand team. And in this video, then I'm going to be going over the Pokemon that are seen on Sand teams and what they do, and and as well as telling you what you generally need to cover on sand and how you can cover it, and what your options for covering these Pokemon are, and how you can put these things together to make a good team. So this is not an all sand, follow this step, and you're not going to be able to copy everything you see in this video to make like one sand super team. Again, because there are so many options. But this will give you some directions in which you can take your sand teams. Like, oh, he said that Breloom counters Scald and Rotom Wash, and I can do that, but I also need a Keldeo check, so my team will then look like this. For example, so if you listen, you pay attention, and of course you look at the resources that I'm going to be showing in this video and linking in the description, then you will have a guideline with which to learn the tier. So yeah, there's the first thing I want to mention is, because people like videos, is Penguin X's, or just Peng's YouTube channel, which he needs to upload more on. I'll bug him to do that. But he is very dedicated to the modern black and white metagame and categorizing all these kinds of teams and figuring out optimal structures and tweaks and whatnot. And so I would definitely recommend checking out his channel, as well as Finchinator's channel. He doesn't upload black and white exclusively, obviously, but he does a ton of black and white videos. So if you sift through those, then you will find a lot of what I'm talking about here as well. And after the season of SPL concludes, then he's going to be releasing a video based on how he himself has been deciding on teams and playing in this SPL himself. So you will be able to check that out once the season concludes in about a month-ish, and maybe a little more. But yeah, and you can also check out the games he's been playing so far, because there are replay threads that are also going to be linked, and you just go down to the black and white section and you check out all the black and white games that you can that your heart can desire from last year, because a lot of the stuff that was used last year is still relevant now, and then, of course, this year, which is still underway, or which is still ongoing at this point, rather, but you can check those games out as well and keep up to date. And finally, I will also recommend that you join my Discord server, also linked in the description, and there you can get real-time feedback and discussions with other people who are playing black and white, observing black and white, like, hey guys, I've been hearing tell of this Colbert Latios set, what does it do, how does it function, how do I use it? And people, including Peng himself, actually, and sometimes Finch, and you'll be able to talk to them, talk to me, and everyone else who's interested in black and white, which is a good amount of people, and you can learn in real time. So those are your resources. Again, everything is in the description. Check that out. And now we will go over, is this even on? Oh, it's just quiet. Okay. Better. Anyway, so now we go over sand and the Pokemon you generally see on sand and how you can incorporate them into your team, what they do. So, again, let me try and phrase that again. So, I realize I'm going to be kind of harsh in these rankings, because like you're going to say, oh, well, what kind of sand team should I put Conkeldurr on? And the answer is you shouldn't. Black and White is possibly it's among the most demanding metagames from a team building standpoint, because the top threats are so fast and so strong and so tough to deal with that they really demand a very specific set of Pokemon that can handle them while being consistent. So like defensive Cloyster, for example, is a perfect counter to to Garchomp. Physical Garchomp anyway, but you're not going to be able to realistically make a team with it. So we're going to be a little harsh. We're going to be omitting a lot of Pokemon like Infernape, and I don't think Kyurem Black is very good on sand either. But you've been warned. Okay, so the first Ttar. This is obviously on every sand team. Some players like Hippowdon. I do like Hippo, but I also think that Ttar's irreplaceable. So if you're going to use Hippo, I think you should probably also be using Ttar. So why is Ttar such a big deal? Well, one of the most broken Pokemon in Black and White, because Black and White is probably the most broken checks broken OU metagame there is. One of the most broken aspects of Black and White are the psychic types, and among them is the main one is Latios. And otherwise, if you don't pursue it with your Ttar, it's going to come in and out and Draco bomb you all the livelong day. So you really want Pursuit for that. It's also really big for Alakazam. Zam is a terror. So what set? The standard set is Chople, Pursuit, Crunch, and then there are a lot of other options. I'm very partial to Ice Beam, personally. Hitting Gliscor, Landorus, Therian, and Garchomp is really, really useful. Superpower is great. Earthquake is underrated. Hits Tentacruel and Heatran really nicely. Rock Slide is good for becoming a better check to Thundurus Therian in a one-on-one situation. I also like Thunder Wave a lot because it completely ruins Alakazam. Alakazam will never switch out of Tyranitar, just about, because otherwise they just go down to their Sash and get pursued for nothing in return. They'll almost always stay in and try to Focus Blast you through the Chople. If their Sash is intact, of course, because then they'll 2-KO you if they hit both. So with T-Wave, you cripple them to the point, you cripple them with T-Wave and then you pursuit them down to the Sash, and that way the Zam is completely ruined, as opposed to, oh no, I lost my Ttar just to bring it down to the Sash, and now it's still going to outspeed and threaten to OHKO a bunch of my stuff, and I'm still in trouble. T-Wave, make sure it's a non-threat. It's also nice to catch things like Keldeo or Terrakion switching in. Mainly Keldeo, because Terrakion is weak to Superpower, but it's definitely a very nice way to punish a Keldeo switch in. So T-Wave is nice, and of course there's Stealth Rock, which is, you know, nice, but I think Ttar is an incredibly unreliable Stealth Rocker on its own. If you can fit it, if you don't really feel like you need the other moves, then you can say, yeah, sure, I'll take Stealth Rock. But it can't be your only rocker, because you cannot rely on Ttar to handle Alakazam and Latios and Reuniclus, and also be your Stealth Rocker. You know, it's not going to get free rocks very much. It's also completely destroyed by Excadrill, the most common spinner. So you definitely don't really like switching it into Tentacruel to, you know, try and beat Tentacruel and have to set up rocks after. It's just too slow, and it can't heal. So it's just not worthwhile at all to have it be your only rocker. So, and generally you can just get by with Pursuit, Crunch, and then Superpower generally, so you can throw Stealth Rock in there if you feel like, you know, you have a free turn somehow and you just want to pop them up so you don't have to wait to get them up with something else. Sure, go ahead. But it can't be your only rocker, otherwise you are going to be fighting an uphill battle against Excadrill and Tentacruel, and they are really common, and you are going to be hindering your ability to get up rocks and also check those Pokemon that Ttar exists to check. So you might also wonder, well, what about the longevity factor? Can't you run leftovers? No, you can't, because half the Pokemon that Ttar checks run Focus Blast. And there are not many better checks to those Pokemon because they don't Pursuit and just generally don't have the utility of Ttar. So to avoid spending, you know, multiple slots on countering these Pokemon, then you will generally, you know, try to do as much as you can with Ttar. Obviously, you're going to have a bit of give and take. Ttar can't take on everything at once. One of the most common variants of Sand is a Psychic Spam, which has Latios, Alakazam, and Reuniclus, and the whole point is to overwhelm Ttar. But you still need Focus or Chople Berry for the Zam, the Reuniclus, the Thundurus Therian, the Tornadus Therian, and it's just generally useful. I mean, at full health, you survive a Keldeo and can T-Wave it. So you are generally going to really want, you got to go with that Chople most of the time. So you want max HP, and then, you know, some special attack EVs if you're running Ice Beam, not a ton. Some attack, 60, I would say if you're trying to fight Reuniclus with it a lot, then 64 to 88 attack EVs. Sometimes I even like max attack, especially if I have Earthquake and really want to destroy Tentacruel. But general, and you know, you hit harder like when you're trying to Pursuit Politoed on occasion because you manage to make a good double switch to replace the Rain. And just, you know, getting as much out of its attacks as possible, because you generally don't switch it into like Latios or Alakazam, especially with hazards up. You generally have to sack to get it in. So, and special defense investment doesn't do enough to change that, thanks to the omnipresent hazards that are on the field most of the time, thanks to the ubiquity of Ferrothorn. So generally, I like giving it max attack to make it at least more threatening on its own. But special defense EVs are also very helpful. Just in most games I find that, yeah, you don't switch in Ttar hard too often and you like having it hit hard, but a spread like this is generally going to get the job done. or or even this. Oh, I forgot to mention Fire Blast. That's also a fine move if you're trying to deter Pharaoh and Skarm, but it should not be your way of breaking teams entirely. Ttar is not so much of a threat in its own right as much as it is a supporter. So the other option for Ttar is Choice Scarf, and I will say I do really love Scarf Ttar. It is very good. The only problem is it dies to Zam. It gets outsped by Zam, even with a Scarf. So you generally have a hard time fitting Scarf Ttar on a team. The way you can fit Scarf Ttar on a team is if you are really, really confident you are good against opposing Zam. Now, this is really hard to justify because Zam's pool of counters is very limited, and that's why Choppletar is by far the most common variant. But if you can fit a Scarf Ttar in, it's great because it lets you check so many other Pokemon aggressively. Like, you outspeed things like Terrakion and Garchomp and Landorus and Excadrill, and it gives you a lot more flexibility with the Tar. It's just Zam is such a big deal that people generally can't afford to run it, but Scarf Tar is a good alternative. Alright, Zam. Zam is nasty because Magic Guard is brutal. And, in Sand and Spikes, and Zam just bypasses all of it. So you run Psychic, don't run Psyshock. Then you run... There's definitely some wiggle room with Zam's set, but the most standard, I would say, the one that you can't miss with... Well, besides literally missing Focus Blast, I would say this is the most standard. I think Hidden Power Ice is nearly required because it gives you so many... Zam lives and dies by Okos most of the time. And having Ice allows you to Oko so much more. I mean, just... as opposed to, doing 70 or something with Psychic. Threatening Garchomp, Gliscor, even Dragonite, just being able to... Ice is just such good coverage for Zam. Not that you have to use it, but it generally is helpful. Signal Beam is good because you want a move that hits other Psychics. Even if you have Pursuit Tar support, you generally do not like being completely walled by Reuniclus, especially because those support Choppletars don't hit Reuniclus that hard. So, going from threatening Reuniclus to being completely walled by it is generally not a good idea. So you're going to want one of Signal Beam or Shadow Ball. In Focus Blast, some people have been dropping Focus Blast. Some people like Grass Knot and HP Fire, and Grass Knot is nice because it hits Ttar just as hard as Focus Blast with Chopple still active, and that can be useful because Focus Blast accuracy is of course horrible, and also has it hits Jellicent hard, hits some waters pretty nicely. But I think giving up on the coverage to hit Latios and Reuniclus is just generally not a great idea. It's doable for sure if you're really certain you can handle Reuniclus and Latios and other Zam even, then sure, go for Grass Knot. It's a great move, but it's definitely tough to fit. So you can go with that. Grass Knot, HP Fire is also nice. Just hits Skarm harder than Focus Blast, and it's reliable, of course. Same with Pharaoh. Even chunks Jirachi pretty nicely. So I generally find it harder to fit just because I think Ice is so good. But Fire is also definitely viable. So Psychic, Focus, Signal Beam, Ice, and then alternatives being Shadow Ball. The Signal Beam is more popular, and I think it's better than Shadow Ball because Shadow Ball hits, Jellicent. Jellicent's generally not an issue because it's going to get torn apart by Sand and Spikes, and Pursuit from Tar, of course. So I think Shadow Ball is generally not so good. It hits like Slowking a little harder, but Signal Beam is good because it's like Grass Knot, and it doesn't hit Ttar very hard because they're so especially bulky, but like a low health Ttar, you're still going to be able to hit with 100% accuracy, and it hits all the other Psychics as well, so that alone is reason enough. And Celebi has been becoming more popular again lately because it's got a lot of nice anti-rain traits, so being able to completely invalidate it as a check, because otherwise Spidef Celebi would be a good check to Zam. Being able to completely invalidate it like that is really nice. You're not going to Oko it by any means, but you're going to be really threatening it. So Signal is very good. And there are other moves it can run, like Encore is very cool, potentially has a lot of really nice applications for getting you out of a pickle. That's why Sash is it's really good with Sash. because with Sash and Encore, you can potentially, no matter how set up something is, then you will probably be able to Encore it into a move, like Volcarona, for example. Encore helps you out a ton there. Thunder Wave is really good. Thunder Wave acts in a similar manner to Encore. It's just like a catch-all, like you ruin other Zam, Volk, what have you. So yeah, it's generally useful for in that regard. Oh, another benefit of HPX is that it hits Thunderous Therian harder than Psychic. That's really valuable. And finally, Calm Mind used to be fairly popular. I liked it, but I would say it's probably not your best bet now. The other alternative to Zam besides Sash is Life Orb. That I think you generally run Sub, Focus, and then Shadow Ball. Generally, Shadow Ball or Signal Beam. It's tough to reconcile. I would generally say the extra power on Signal Beam makes it nice for low health scenarios, but people play around Zam a lot, like protecting for health and sacrificing on the switch a lot more readily. But with Sub, then you really ruin that, and you gain a lot of power because, of course, you don't take Life Orb Equivalent because of Magic Guard. So you hit really, really hard, and the surprise factor of Sub is great. And even without the surprise factor, then it's a Life Orb Zam, so it hits really hard and is a very threatening late game. So, of course, the lack of security from Focus Sash is what makes this harder to slot on your team, but it's definitely has some application. I also should have mentioned that another great thread, I don't know how I passed over this, is the SPL Black and White discussion thread. And you can go to this thread, it's also linked in the description. You can go into this thread and read other players, and like here's several analyses from Finch, and you can read about the other games that have been happening, and the teams and plays and whatnot. So you can... you have even more stuff to learn from. People talk about the sets that have been getting used. So yeah, this thread as well. Sorry for getting to it late. And as always, the music you hear in the background, I'm trying to turn this down a little bit. The music you hear in the background can be found in the background music playlist on my channel. Anyway, so yeah, Zam. So, what kind of teams does Zam fit on? Well, don't use it without spikes. It really, really needs those spikes, because like I said earlier, Zam is a Pokemon that lives and dies by the OHKO, and you generally want those spikes to put things like Ttar into range of that Signal Beam, or to that Life Orb Focus Blast that rips through Chople at 40%. So spikes help out Zam a ton. And it's a fast late game cleaner. It's the fastest unboosted Pokemon you're going to see in any given Black and White game. Stuff like Jolteon, is that still? Yeah, it's OU by technicality. Nothing is going to outspeed Zam without a Scarf or priority. So, and that gives it gets the jump on, all those other wall breakers. A lot of Black and White is outspeeding a certain wall breaker with your own wall breaker. So, yeah, Thunderous Therian is scary, but Garchomp outspeeds it. Yeah, that Garchomp is scary, but my Keldeo outspeeds it. Yeah, Keldeo is scary, but my Latios outspeeds it. And then Starmie, and then Alakazam sits above them all. So it is the ultimate. Whoops. Yeah, so that's Zam for you. But yeah, it's above them all. So you're gonna be revenge killing anything, any big wall breaker, pretty much. And of course, you would threaten a late game sweep. So it's one of the most important Pokemon. If you're running a more balanced team that switches around and doesn't try to end the game super fast, or isn't like super aggressive, and especially if it doesn't have spikes, then Zam might not be for you. But if you have spikes, then Zam is worth considering just because of the sheer amount of offense it brings to your team. And yeah, it's also a good way of dealing with spikes. So I want to mention now, before it slips my mind, a couple things you have to be prepared for in Black and White. Keldeo is a big one because Keldeo is unforgiving. There are a couple ways you do that. You run a counter where you stack psychic types and things like Gastron to just limit its opportunities. You put defense EVs on your Ferrothorn. But generally you have to account for spikes above all else, because spikes are universal. I mean, you could say, oh, I'll take the rain away and I'll be better against those rain threats. But spikes, if you can't deal with spikes somehow, and you can't maintain and make use of your own spikes, then you're going to be up the creek without a paddle against both opposing sand teams and against rain teams. And I should mention now that half the point of sand is not to... I mean, people have this idea that sand is the safe, lazy, balanced playstyle that people use for free wins. Could not be farther from the truth. Sand is the playstyle that allows you to consistently withstand some of the scariest Pokemon around, because it has the one Pokemon that can actually remove Latios from the game, as well as Alakazam. That's why Ttar is such a big deal. And... yeah, so, and part of the reason why sand is so good against rain is because the rain threats are really threatening in rain. Like, Specs Keldeo is pretty much unwallable in rain, you know, barring, of course, you know, water immunities, which have their own set of flaws. But the whole point of sand, if you're playing, like, whenever sand loses to rain, then I'm not saying that sand automatically beats rain or anything. That's ridiculous. But sand should not be losing to rain because you never tried to replace the rain. And then, like, when Specs Keldeo comes in with rain up and destroys your whole sand team, it's like, oh, how was I supposed to deal with that? Well, using sand to deal with rain requires being aggressive. You got to get your Ttar in as much as possible. You got to get those hazards up, wear down their Politoed. You can't let it come in and out the whole game, or you're going to get overwhelmed. And you have to cut off that sand. You have to hit them hard because their defenses are not going to be great since they're so stacked on offensive Pokemon. Alakazam is huge. Rain teams hate switching into Alakazam, but you got to have those hazards. Otherwise, something like Spadef Politoed is going to shrug it off. And you got to have those hazards, and you got to cut off that rain as much as possible. That's like half the point of sand, really. I mean, people don't... I personally don't love using Ttar in every team. I mean, this slow Pokemon that's destroyed by all these earthquakes and fighting moves and water moves... I mean, come on. But without Ttar, you are getting slaughtered by the rain threats. Those boosted Hydro Pumps. It's Tentacruel. Oh, God. Tentacruel in Rain was one of the most ridiculous Pokemon on Earth. So, yes, when you're using sand, it's not enough to just have a good sand team. You have to be smart. Like, a sand team is not going to carry you to free wins unless your opponent's team is bad, in which case it doesn't matter what you bring. But if you are using a sand team against a good player with a rain team, you have to be cutting off that rain at every juncture possible. If you just let them keep their rain up, then of course you're going to lose to the rain threats. You allowed them to have rain. The whole point of sand is to make sure they don't have rain. Now, yeah, you're not going to be, perfect. You're not going to be lights out every game. Good players with rain are going to find opportunities for their rain threat to get in, and at that point you're going to have to cut your losses. But that's where a Pokemon like Alakazam comes in. It's like, yeah, you can get your KO with Specs Keldeo, but now my Zam is coming in and you're losing a Pokemon. And in the long term, I've planned ahead, and you're getting worn down and taken out by my Zam and whatever else, Latios, Reuniclus, whatever, before I lose all my Pokemon to your Specs Keldeo. So it's this kind of long-term thinking that is long-term thinking and aggression that is crucial to winning the Sand versus Rain matchup. Leveraging your anti-rain tools, because Sand is an anti-rain tool. You think, oh, well, Ttar's weak to water. How can it be anti-rain? Well, it's also incredibly bulky. You can switch into Politoed once. Who cares if you take a burn? You're winning with your hazards. If you're not winning with your hazards, then you are winning because you are sitting on them with a defensive core. And I would say that is what differentiates Sand the most. Something like Alakazam needs those spikes because Alakazam is not great defensively, but with spikes it is monstrous offensively because it outspeeds everything unboosted and has that sash safety net. So in this scenario, you are getting those hazards, you're maintaining them, you're cutting off their rain, not just because you don't want to switch into their Rain Specs Keldeo, but because you don't want Tentacruel spinning your stuff away, and you want to put that Politoed on a timer. You have to leverage all your tools really well. So again, this is what all those other resources are there for, and I'm just here to explain the individual Pokemon on them and where they fit in. So yeah, when you're using Zam, you are taking the aggressive route. You are not going to win with Zam by just passively sending it in at the end of the game. Oh, well, I hope I win now. I mean, if you planned it out that way, sure, but it's not going to, 1v6 any teams for you. So I mean, and use the damage calc. This is so huge. For example, you don't want to be that guy who has Zam in against a full health Tentacruel and goes, oh, lol, well, I guess I'll Psychic. It probably KOs, and then it doesn't come close. Because, yeah, Tentacruel lives Zam Psychic. That's another reason for Life Orb Zam, by the way, completely destroying Tentacruel. Anyway, so yeah, when you go Zam, you need those spikes, and you need to play aggressive, and it will reward you if you do. But if you sit back and you let the other guy just wog all over you, then you are not going to get very far. Okay. Breloom. Breloom on Sand teams runs Toxic Orb and Poison Heal. You're generally not going to be seeing any Technician Choice Band stuff. So it runs Protect because you need it, otherwise Rotom Wash is going to lead off and Will-O-Wisp you, and you don't want that. And then it has a lot of options in terms of what set it wants to run. Generally, you're going to find something with max HP. Then you can either go Bulk if you're running Sub Punch, Sub, Focus, Punch, Facade, or Seed Bomb. Facade is stronger against neutral targets like Gliscor, Lando, Reuniclus, and it hits Latios really hard, and Thunder's Therian, so it's really big. But if you're fearful of Jellicent, then you can run Seed Bomb. So yeah, this set would run such a spread. Adamant, lots of attack. But if you are running something bulkier like Drain Punch, ditch the... Okay, so if you're running like Bulk Up or Swords Dance, Drain Punch with Facade, then you will run Spidef. This lets you... It's completely immune to Scald Burns, which is really nice. So you can run something like this. You can run Swords Dance if you want to just blow through Reuniclus, stuff like that. So... yeah, this thing its purpose is to help you against Rotom on opposing sand teams and Scald spam on rain. So Politoed and Tentacruel, you absorb those with ease. And it also is good against all kinds of waters on sand, like Gastrodon, and Milotic has been gaining popularity. Slow Twins. I mean, you have to be careful because they run Ice Beam, and sometimes Slow Twins run Psyshock, but you can pivot around that. And the point is to make your opponent knock over the Scald when you switch in your Tyranitar. That's the idea. There are other sets on Breloom, like Drain Punch, Swords Dance also, but I am particularly a fan of Toxic. I think it's great for crippling Lando and not Gliscor, but Latios. That's the other one. Yeah, you really, really ruin those common switches to Breloom and Protect, and you outstall them and take advantage of with your other Pokemon. So Breloom generally is on the type of team that doesn't need to be more aggressive. The whole idea is that it's defensive backbone, but it's not just a defensive backbone that sits on its butt and waits for the opponent to die. I mean, it's not Blissey. The whole point is that it makes it wears down the opponent. I mean, you can try other stuff like Leech Seed and Worry Seed that I've really enjoyed. And there's a lot of room for experimentation with its sets. But the idea is that you withstand those burning water types, and you then proceed to wear down the opponent. So it's gradual. It's a War of Attrition kind of Pokemon. It's kind of the opposite of Zam. Zam is like, get up those hazards and let's slam the other guy. And with Breloom, it's like, we can take our time, we can switch around. So generally really like Spin. And that Spin on sand should come from Excadrill. I'll just get that out of the way now. Fortress is very difficult to justify in an Excadrill metagame, and Starmie has a whole litany of issues, but Excadrill is a threat and a great spinner, and has great defensive utility as well. So yeah, Breloom doesn't need Drill. Like, there have been teams that spike stack alongside. Not that you can't spike stack and spin, but a lot of black and white teams tend to go one way or the other, because spike stacking or spinning are the two main ways that you choose to deal with opposing spikes. Either you match their spikes with your own, so they're just as hindered switching around as you are. Both of you should be carrying Pokemon that don't mind spikes, of course, and that are a threat, so Zam, Reuniclus, SD Gliscor, those kinds of guys. Or you spin and you remove those hazards, and that's the Excadrill route, and I would say that's the biggest differentiating factor. Of course, there are also types of sand teams that don't really fit into either. You don't necessarily need to go the full, I'm stacking spikes in my Magikarp Psychics route, and you don't need to go, I'm going to spin with Excadrill. There are certain kinds of sand offense teams, like this team I used to use a lot, and a lot of other people have liked it as well. It's like Heatran, Rotom, Terrakion, Lando, Latios. That's just an offensive team, but that kind of team, you have to really get out in front and win fast, because otherwise you are risking a loss to every other kind of sand team, really. Because even like the balance stuff with like your Protect Excadrill and your Protect Breloom and your Slowking has Regenerator, so it's got a lot of longevity, and those that kind of switch around a lot, then the longer the game goes on, and to say nothing of those teams that stack spikes and have Zam and Reuniclus waiting in the back, then the longer that game goes on, the lower the chance that super offensive team has of winning. So that kind of team definitely is viable, but you definitely have to have a good grasp on your offensive synergy, how to play those matchups, what to switch in, what moves to go for, what to predict, what to wear down, and how to abuse that. So Yeah, Breloom can fit on those teams pretty nicely, actually, because when it goes with something like a Sub-Punch set, then it is a massive threat. So you are able to get Breloom in, give you some breathing room against all those Scalds, and then you launch that strong Focus Punch, and backed up by the Facade, and you're ripping through most of the metagame. So it is good on those kinds of offensive teams that are not trying to outlast anything, but are trying to win more on the quick side, but they're not like full hyper offense. So full hyper offense definitely works on sand as well in the form of Custap Scarm stuff, just because there's so many great offensive Pokemon that fit on those teams. Like Zam, of course, is a natural slot. And if you check out SPL, those replays and those discussion threads, then you will see some of those. So yeah, this is what I meant by sand having so much variety in them. I mean, you have the outlasting variety, you have the aggressive variety, you have the super aggressive variety, and you have the hyper aggressive variety, and there are variations even in those. And you contrast this to the very limiting Rain and Dragmax styles. So anyway, Celebi, great poke. This is one of the Pokemon you have to check is Keldeo with your so that means this is not a hard rule, but generally the way you check Keldeo, which is one of the most distinct rain threats, is that you pack a water resist that also resists fighting. So that means Breloom is great as one water resist, but you generally are going to want Latios and or Slowking or something like that alongside it. Jellicent as well. So that's what Breloom is generally paired with. So that's why you can't run something like Breloom Rotom and be fine against rain. Or Rotom Ferrothorn or stuff like that. It's kind of a pain. I really hate Keldeo's effect on team building, but that's it is what it is. And I hate that expression, so I hate that Keldeo just made me use it. Anyway, Celebi is great because with the Spadef spread, it handles Keldeo, and it's also very good against Thundurus, who is a massive pain to counter. You just run max special attack or special defense. Sorry. It has a couple routes it can go. It has a lot of room for exploration that it's just barely, it was really good in current Black and White, when Black and White was the current gen, with its Spadef spread. Like Giga Drain, HP Fire, U-Turn, Recover, used to run Parasong, then everyone decided they wanted something else. And, it could run stuff like Stealth Rock, but then it kind of fell off for a while, but then it realized, look, this thing's main problem was spikes, so if we just pair it with this Excadrill we discovered is really good, then it can be really good as well. So that's the idea with Celebi. I would not recommend Celebi on a team without Excadrill. Excadrill is key to making up for Celebi's insane vulnerability against the Spikers. And Celebi does not have the longevity to last long in on like a team with the Magic Garters. It's going to die really quickly. So I think it definitely fits on the more balanced style. So one of its greatest traits is that it's like Breloom. It's like Breloom in that it can handle the Scald and the Will-O-Wisping Rotom because of Natural Cure. So and it has instant recovery as well. So it's a really good stealth rocker against rain because it checks so much. Keldeo, Thundurus, and it switches into Politoed. And with Stab Psychic, then you destroy Tentacruel, so you can maintain your rocks really nicely. So that last slot, that can be a lot. You can run Giga Drain. I like Giga Drain and some defense EVs so that you are not completely walled by Spin Drill on other sand teams. You can run Baton Pass to avoid Ttar Pursuit. You can run U-Turn, which is superior to Baton Pass in every other scenario. But some Ttar have been pursuing Celebis lately, thinking that they're running U-Turn over Baton Pass. So I would generally say BP is safer. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. There's a lot of experimentation to be done with Celebi, honestly. I mean, T-Wave, Healing Wish, so many cool moves. Maybe Magic Code even. Nasty Plot, just Nasty Plot for its own sake, not even passing it. Who knows with Heal Bell and whatnot. And even Trick, I made a couple teams with Trick Celebi because it has that last move slot open so often. Psychic Recover, Baton Pass, or U-Turn, or Giga Drain, or whatever, and then, that last slot can just be Trick, and you can run it with a Choice Scarf or something. So yeah, BP, and yeah, there's a lot to be experimented with Celebi, but generally balanced team, and you balanced to a more balanced offensive team, and you use it as support against Keldeo and Thundurus. And the great thing about Celebi, as opposed to something like Amoonguss, is not just its longevity, its resilience to status with natural cure and recover, but also the fact that it maintains momentum with baton pass or U-turn. Amoonguss could never, and that means you take that hit from Keldeo, and instead of just firing off a weak hit and letting them take the momentum back, or risking a double switch, then you just BP out and you win either way. So it's a really safe way of handling those. And I'm also a big fan of the sub pass set, because it has nothing's really using seismic toss because rain stall is terrible and so is Chansey, but I guess you do that for that occasional matchup. But yeah, the idea is that you sub pass and you can get in a threat really, like Terrakion, for example. So I really enjoy that. And yeah, so that's Celebi for you. Cloyster we skip, Conkeldurr we skip. Dragonite has potential for sure, but it's really hard to fit, so we're going to skip that, and we're going to go right to one of the most definitive sand pokes, Excadrill. So the main sand drill set is EQ, Iron Head, Spin, and Protect. So this set is just Jolly, and then some bulk is nice, but for our sake, we're just gonna say Jolly. Adamant is feasible. It hits really hard, and I do like that, so I'm gonna give it a little mention here. But Jolly is generally more common, so I guess I gotta keep it. But yeah, Excadrill is really nice, and you can run some bulk for various hits. I mean, sometimes I really like to bulk out Excadrill and give it a billion Spidef EVs to live, like Thunderous T Timid Thunderous T Focus Blast, because you outspeed Modest, or just I think 168 is for Zam, stuff like that. Something in this range, and then it hits a lot less hard, of course. So you have to decide on how you like it on your team. But the whole idea is that you're not going to be beating Ferrothorn or Helmet Scarm one-on-one, but with a little bit of team support, things like Rotom and Lando, then you luring them, or even like a Trick Scarf Celebi is a great call for this purpose exactly, then you are able to really reliably remove spikes, because the only real spin blocker is Jellicent, who gets completely destroyed by Sand Force EQ. You have a lot of longevity between your Stealth Rock, quadruple resistance, your Sand immunity, and Protect, which means it's even harder to force you out with something like a Scarf Lando, anything choiced. It's got some good defensive typing too. I mean, with some bulk, you become an interim switch to Latios Draco Meteor, so you can do stuff like you don't have to risk your Ttar getting worn down. Excadrill is really good in that regard, in fighting the traditional psychic spam strategy, not just because it clears those spikes so effectively that those teams are so reliant on, and it can also help threaten those a lot of Pokemon on those teams. Like if Latios wants to spam Draco, Excadrill can come in, and it fires off a big hit in return, and it can check some variants of Reuniclus really well. If they don't have Focus Blast, then Excadrill completely walls them. And it still just is generally a pain to switch into. I mean, being able to survive a Zam Focus Blast and spin, break the sash, and clear hazards is incredible. So yeah, that's Excadrill for you. It's a huge part of... Generally, if your team is wants the capability of switching around in the face of those spikes that are ever present in the black and white metagame, then you either stack your immunes and your Gliscor, Reuniclus, Zam, Skarmory, that kind of stuff, or you have Excadrill, so you can reap the benefit of using stuff like Breloom and Celebi that are otherwise torn apart by sand and spikes. So yeah, that's what it facilitates. It's what it does. It has some variation to it. I mean, some people like Mold Breaker and Toxic. I think Rocks are pretty good on it. I think Rock Slide's a good move on it. And there's definitely room for experimentation. Again, join the Discord, and there's a whole debate on that whole kind of thing. But it's definitely very difficult to go wrong with this. I think the Sand Force is a big part of making Excadrill as threatening as it is. Because as soon as you take out that Mold Breaker, yeah, you hit Rotom, but Rotom is not that difficult to wear down. And generally, I think it's better to make Excadrill as good as what it's supposed to do. Of course, if you want to run Rocks on your drill over Iron Head, then I definitely support Mold Breaker. Just because Iron Head, you're not threatening anything without Sand Force boosted Iron Head anyway. So, like things like Gliscor, Lando. So, yes, there's a lot of stuff to consider, EVs-wise as well, all-out bulk. There's some physical, bulky Excadrills that we've seen. I think Solwyn came up with that set. It's really nice. And there's a lot of directions to go in with Exca, but generally, this is the general idea, and that's what it's supposed to do for you. Clear the hazards and be a threat. And by clearing hazards so reliably, and by picking up some slack defensively, helping your Ttar out, then you combat one of the most dangerous styles in Black and White really nicely. So, and of course its EQ is just tough to switch into. So, I mean, it's tough to get at a free turn against Rain. Most of the time you're just spinning against a knocked off, maybe burned Ferrothorn. But, you know, if you can do that and then fire off an EQ, then it's really, really nice. Yeah. It's not a foolproof against Skarmory, of course, but they're like Magnezone's another way around Skarm, so yeah. Or even just getting rid of its lefties somehow. So yeah, that's Excadrill for you. Another Ferrothorn. Ferro, we know what this does. If you've watched the video on the Rain, the Rain video I made, it's pretty much the same thing here. You know, Stealth Rock, Spikes, just because it's so difficult to deal with Ferro otherwise. I mean, Leech Seed is just more or less in the past at this point, just because it's so useless against things like Reuniclus and Breloom. So you're generally going to want something like this. I don't know why I made it max attack, sorry. Did I click on the guest spread? Yeah, I did. Okay, so yeah, here's some things. So yeah, you don't need rocks. Like if you have a rocks Lando, then I would definitely say yeah, you can use something else on Ferro. But it's also not a bad idea to use dual rocks in Black and White in general. Like I mentioned it earlier on Ttar, but it's also great on Ferro because that way, if you're leading off against a Rotom and their team has no spin, then you don't want to wait until your Lando comes in to get up those rocks. You want to lead off with Ferro, and you get up those rocks immediately, and the rocks and the spikes, which is much better than 2 layers of spikes on their own. And then having to waste another turn to get Lando in, and then get up rocks, and that can be hard. So generally, it's nice for some flexibility, especially because I don't think the other moves Ferrothorn runs are that valuable that you have to give it up. However, there are some good options, of course. Worry Seed is really nice. It lets you escape from Magnezone, and it ruins Magic Guard and Poison Heal, so it has a lot of applications for Reuniclus, Breloom, Gliscor. And then other stuff like Gyro Ball is okay. I don't think it's that great, but it's, if you're really fearing like a Calm Mind, Dragon Gem, Latios, going to town on you, but that's generally more a rain thing than anything else. So I mean, Gyro Ball's okay, I suppose. Finch really likes Endeavor, and I think that's a really interesting set. So, worth considering for sure. And, yeah, what's the last one? Was that everything? Oh, no. T-Wave is okay, I guess, but it's not really, yeah. I wouldn't go with T-Wave. And Leech Seed isn't the worst, but it doesn't really do much in those common matchups that you're using Ferrothorn for, so it's weird, Ferrothorn without Leech Seed. Such a foreign concept, but that's how it is most of the time. So yeah, if you're not going with Rock, and you need Power Whip, because otherwise you just do nothing to Tentacruel and Excadrill, and half the point of Ferrothorn is being able to go toe-to-toe with the spinners, to some degree at least, so I would not go without Power Whip. So yeah, Spikes, knock off Power Whip, then Rocks, maybe Endeavor, maybe Worry Seed. I would generally, maybe Gyro Ball. I would generally be choosing between those. As for EVs, you can go special and have almost another check to Zam in a way. It's funny just because you'll be able to live Focus Blast at ridiculous ranges, but for the most part, I think it's better to go Impish on Ferrothorn these days. I mean, yeah, you still want a good chunk of Spadef EVs to take Draco Meteors and whatnot, but just going with a plus defense nature, because Ferrothorn's natural defense stat is so high, then you take things like Excadrill EQ a lot better, Lando EQ gives you a lot more freedom in setting up, and knocking off and going for Power Whips, and generally being able to take blows, which allows you to set up that endgame for your Zam more effectively. Let's turn this up a little bit. Anyway, and another big thing, besides just taking those EQs, since you're already taking those water moves, more or less the same, then another really big thing, and if you run a Gyro Ball, then of course go with the minus speed nature, so relaxed and 0 IVs. But yeah, another thing about Impish is that it lets you take Keldeo's Secret Sword a lot better. So if it's a non-specs Keldeo and you're at high health, you're going to be able to take that Secret Sword. And that's yet another reason for Power Whip. You want to be able to actually threaten it back. So I mean, the amount of defense and special defense varies. I mean, you can do 8 EVs, you can do 48 EVs, you can do 88 EVs, which is an ancient spread that allows you to live CB Ttar Superpower. CB Ttar is kind of not very common nowadays, and for good reason, but it's still a good benchmark because it just makes you a lot tougher for all those EQs flying around and Keldeo's Secret Sword. And generally, you will be able to take those Draco Meteors and such more or less the same. So Yeah, Ferrothorn is not a Pokemon that sticks around, simply because there are not better options on your team. Almost guaranteed that to take. There are not going to be better options on your team that can take things like opposing Ferrothorn and its knockoff, or Rotom Wash and its Will-O-Wisp. You use Ferrothorn as a buffer against the big threats while crippling things with knockoff and getting up your own hazards, and you stave off the opposing team long enough for your own offense to be able to bring the game home. So it generally fits more on that Alakazam type of team where, you know, if it's more on that type of team that's like, let's be aggressive, let's get down those hazards, let's weaken the opposing team, as opposed to that kind of team that wants to switch around all year long. So that's Ferrothorn for you. What's next? Fortress, we're skipping it because it's just generally not worth, and we have enough Pokemon to go through. We still have to go through Garchomp, Gastrodon, Gliscor, Heatran, Hippo, maybe Hydreigon, Jellicent, maybe Jirachi, not really, Keldeo, Lando, Latios, Mamoswine, Reuniclus, Rotom, Skarm, Terrakion. Okay, so that's pretty much it. All right, so not too much, but yeah, we got some more Pokemon to get through. So Garchomp. Chomp is interesting. It's not really been used as a Scarfer on sand much. If you do use it as a Scarfer, you know, refer to the Dragmag video for more information. You really have to be sure you're great against Skarmory and physical walls in general, so Gliscor, Orlando T. So you really are going to want some sort of good lure for them. You know, Magnezone is one route, some sort of wall-breaking Terrakion is another. But yeah, you definitely can't slap on Scarf and just coast. So most of the time, Garchomp is going to be taking the form of a mixed set. And it'll run either Dragon Gem or Life Orb with a set of Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, Earthquake, and Filler. The filler is often Stealth Rock, but there are other options. If you are running Life Orb, for example, then Outrage and Hidden Power Ice are also very good options. HP Ice just really cementing that KO on like Spadef Gliscor, because Spadef Gliscor is a perfect counter to Draco Fire Blast EQ Chomp. You know, whether it's Life Orb or Dragon Gem. And that's another reason for Outrage in general. It's just nice when you Draco Meteor something like a Gastrodon and they think they're out of range of EQ, and then you power through them with an Earthquake. Same for something like a Jellicent or a Slow Twin. So it's generally nice to have both Dragon Stabs. But HP Ice is definitely nice because it will, and it also helps against Spadef Gliscor, obviously. But EVing it can be kind of hard because you can't really afford special attack attack EVs. So yeah, generally HP Ice, props to Frania, I believe. He's the one who brought it this season of SPL. Then he used it, and I think it's a great call. So definitely worth considering. And but of course, Stealth Rock, it's a great Stealth Rocker because it completely dominates Excadrill and Tentacruel. Now, the thing about Mixed Chomp that I don't love is that you really want those special attack EVs on it, or you really want all the power you can get behind it, let's say, because of its low special attack stat. But it also really needs its speed stat. You need to be outspeed, because the nice thing about plus special attack is that it outspeeds even Jolly Excadrill, which is wonderful. But with plus speed, then you outrun max speed Landorus, which is popular, plus speed Tentacruel, which is also really popular in standard, and plus speed Thundurus, Therian obviously. And those are all really big, but the power is just painful. You know, it makes me think you almost need to use Dragon Gem just to get the most out of that, you know, neutral max special attack Draco Meteor in that one-on-one. So yeah, it's kind of painful sometimes. If you're running a Life Orb, then you know, at least you have the Outrage to fall back on. But yeah, that's a very popular way Garchomp is run right now. I feel like Garchomp is weirdly underrated simply because it doesn't fulfill a specific defensive niche. Like Excadrill and Landorus are also really threatening offensively, but they also fulfill specific defensive niches, and Garchomp doesn't really do that. However, although it doesn't counter things, you know, concretely, it's got that great typing in Dragon, that neutrality to water, that resistance to fire, that are just so valuable, and fending off things like Heatran and Rotom, and that great speed tier. And it doesn't concretely counter stuff defensively. However, it is able to, you know, find its way into a game and check things with its typing and its speed and its huge bulk. I mean, look at that HP and those defenses, and it's able to fire off a big threatening attack in return. So it's tough to justify on paper. You might have to have some more concrete checks to stuff alongside it, which is not a bad thing. That's also something that would be expected alongside an offensive Lando, for example. But it's so worth it in the game. And a forgotten set almost is Swords Dance. And with Skarmory has really become less common overall. I mean, still good against a lot of sand, but it also is not good against rain because it's so terrible against Tentacruel. So unlike Ferrothorn. So as soon as Skarmory falls out of the picture, then Garchomp's stabs become massively threatening on their own. So you can run just a straight up SD set. I really like Dragon Gem, but I also really like Yachi Berry because it makes you a great check to Thunderous Therian, an offensive check to it. Makes me feel a lot better about running a plus speed nature on it. And you also, with Dual Chop, then you can survive a Zam HP Ice with Yachi, and you Dual Chop it through the Sash, which is just amazing. So yeah, regular SD Chomp is just a brutal threat. And of course, you can run stuff like Stealth Rock on this set over Dual Chop or Outrage. You can run Fire Fang in a similar vein, but either way, and you can of course run Lumberry as well. That's really nice for all the Will-O-Wisps and Scald burns and Lava Plume burns from Heatran that are going around. But yeah, Lumberry is great, Yachi Berry is great, Dragon Gem is great. Even Leftovers are really nice. But yeah, Garchomp has a lot of really. You could even do Life Orb if you really wanted to. Yeah, and there's also Endure Salic, which is really nice. So you kind of get that without relying on sub. You can endure, like when you rely on sub to activate Salic, then you can't do stuff like, oh well, I'm facing a Specs Latios and I don't have a sub up, so I'm not going to be able to Salic against it. But with Endure, then you survive the Draco and then you sweep. In theory, anyway. It's tough to choose between Dual Chop and Outrage, which is why you have to support it well. You have to have that lure for that Gliscor, that Landorus, to at least chunk them into where they're being threatened, because locking an Outrage can suck, but the power is also really big. So there's a lot of choices to be made with Garchomp, both its moveset and its with its partners, but it's a huge threat. It's definitely... It's on the more offensive side. You're not going to be using a team that wants to switch around too much, but being able to switch is nice. So make sure you play aggressively, and make sure you have lots of ways of punishing those common spiking teams. Otherwise, they're going to get up their hazards, and you're going to be up the creek real fast. So yeah, Chomp is awesome. I even like Choice Band sometimes. And oh, Rocky Helmet's a great item too. Really punish especially if you're running rocks. Really punish those spins and those U-turns that are everywhere. So Helmet's awesome. You can I wouldn't use a full support tank Chomp like Dragon Tail and stuff like a la Gen 6 or a la when Gen 6 or a la early, just like when Gen 5 was the main gen. Black and White 2, then that set was popular for a while, but I don't think that's too valuable. I mean, maybe if you want a Dragon Ttar or something, but I don't think the tank Chomp is too great on those Magikarp teams, because I mean, maybe, who knows? It used to be, so it might be worth trying again. But in general, Rocky Helmet's a great item on even offensive Garchomp. So, yeah, that's Chomp for you. That is Chomp. Gastrodon. Gastro goes through these periods. First of all, you always use the east side. Gastro goes through these periods of being really good and then kind of being forgotten, simply because as soon as it's not forgotten anymore, then people will throw grass coverage on stuff. Like Zam is using grass coverage. Thunderous is using Grass Knot again for similar reasons to Zam. It hits Ttar harder and it ruins Gastron as a counter. Keldeo doesn't really run Grass anymore, but it runs Toxic a lot. So Gastron's stock is generally a little low right now. Some people are even saying it's outclassed by Milotic. I would say that as long as you're not relying on it to 100% hard counter those Pokemon and instead using it as a temporary stopgap, almost kind of like a Ferrothorn, then it can be really good, especially because it blocks Rotom, and that's really huge. Yeah, you'll eat a burn, that sucks, but you'll also be able to dish out a burn in return. That's also why I don't like Earthquake on Gastro. I would rather use Earth Power. Or, Toxic if you like, but I like Earth Power as well for hitting Tentacruel. You don't want to, half the point is switching to Rotom, which is going to burn you, and then you have a useless Earthquake. Just use Earth Power. So, yeah, it's got to run that max defense to thwart off Specs-Keld's sword, but it's pretty good at doing that. It's a great Pokemon. You can even fit in stuff like Clear Smog for SD Gliscor, Calm Mind Reuniclus. Again, over Earth Power. That's the slot that I think is the most flexible, because Burn and Ice Beam generally do the rest pretty nicely. So yeah, Gastron is generally good on fitting on teams that like to go the distance, because those teams generally want to stop. Well, they need a lot of defensive holes plugged in one slot. Keldeo, Thundurus, rain stuff in general, Rotom Wash, so it doesn't just scream momentum on them all day. And Gastron isn't perfect at doing all those things, but it does those things just well enough to where you are able to build a team that goes aggressive enough with its offense, its spikes, and its psychics, while still having defensive play against those other threats. So it's kind of it plugs holes in that vein. So again, if you want to see it in action, you know where those resources are. So next up, Gliscor. Gliscor is a huge, huge threat. So it can do a lot of stuff. Toxic Orb always. I don't think anyone's really running that. The Flying Gem Hypercutter stuff, as fun as that is. So you run a EQ, so there's a lot of stuff it's running. I would say generally right now the two categories which you can put Gliscor in, let me turn this down a little because it's louder. Yeah, so you generally put it in the Stealth Rock category or the Swords Dance category, and it goes with Protect pretty much always, because it's reliable for maximizing the recovery you get in a short amount of time, which is good, which is generally better than Roost, especially because you get to scout things with it. So Protect over Roost generally. So you go with EQ and Protect, and if you run Swords Dance, then you run either Facade or Ice Fang in the last slot. Facade smacks Rotom and hits regular super effective Ice Fang targets harder, i.e. Thundurus, Therian, and Latios. But Ice Fang is big because it hits Landorus, Therian, and Garchomp super effectively. So it's a tough choice to make, but both are good. Both are very good. There's also the choice of Impish versus Careful. Impish is good. Full defense Impish is fine. Some defense, some defense Impish, lots of Spadef is also a great set. Full out Careful, just for posterity, then this is the amount of Spadef you need, 168 Careful, to survive a Zam HP Ice from full, and then you can chuck in some more defense EVs, or you can even go all the way and be semi-comfortable living Rotom Hydros and stuff. So and Latios, I think you want max for like Latios, Draco, Meteor. But yeah, that's generally the idea. And there are also some variants that go Adamant. I mean, the amount of investment varies, but you generally find a Spadef benchmark, like Living Rotom Hydro, and then you run Adamant, which is really nice for plowing through Reuniclus in particular. Oh, you gotta live Reuniclus HP Ice, that's a big one. You live Reuniclus HP Ice, and you can 2 KO it with Adamant. I forget the exact benchmark, it's not a lot, but there's generally a good amount of EVs you can run. You can run some defense if you like, but it's generally going to be a mixture of attack and Spadef. Yeah, when you run Gliscor and you run Spadef sets on it, then make sure you do not completely crumple to Excadrill if it goes down, because you are not taking its Sand Force boosted Iron Head so well. You'll generally be fine, but make sure you have a plan. Out offense it, or have a Scarm or something. So, and then the other sets are Stealth Rockers generally. I mean, you can also do like all-out utility sets, because with like Wing Attack is a hard Breloom counter, and Knockoff. Knockoff is a great move on it in general, and Crippling Waters. And if you do this, then make sure you have another good rocker. But generally, you like Gliscor as a... And if you run EQ Knockoff, make sure you are good against Breloom, of course, because you are not touching it at all with this set. But... generally, when you like Rock's Gliscor because it's very reliable against Spin Excadrill. So, yeah, you can run Impish. I would generally say you want Impish, you either want Max Spadef Careful, or you want Impish with, what's it called? A lot of Spadef EVs regardless. Just give yourself some leeway against like Politoed Scalds, Tentacruel Scalds as well. So, but yeah, some generally Careful is preferred. So, your options, Knockoff is good, Toxic is good. I generally prefer Knockoff. honestly. It's just so good against Rotom. Toxic also good. I mean, you can ditch Stealth Rock if you really want to use it on Heatran or Skarmory or something. But, yeah, you will generally... yeah, this is also your check. Usually your check to physical stuff besides Excadrill, like Dragonite, Terrakion, Garchomp. So make sure watch out with your set and your teammates in regards to being able to take those threats on. So, like for example, this Spadef Gliscor without Ice Fang is not a Garchomp counter at all. So make sure you have some ways to play around it. If you want to just say I'm going to get up all the hazards and win with Zam, then this Gliscor is a prime candidate for those teams. So, yeah, there's Knockoff, there's Toxic, there's U-Turn, there's Taunt, an underrated set. You can, for messing with other defense. It really depends. You can run Taunt, Knockoff, you can run Taunt, U-Turn. There's a lot of stuff you can mix. These, as long as you have EQ and Protect, the rest is generally going to be fine. So, yeah, that's Gliscor for you. I would, yeah, so mix and match, and, yeah, and keep your EVs in mind. Depending on the opposing threats, and Gliscor fits onto those teams that like to switch around, and on those teams that like to get up their hazards and be aggressive. It's really nice. It's really versatile. Yeah, it's just an amazing Pokemon. It's been getting spammed like heck in this SPL. So yeah, Gyarados we don't really go over. Heatran. Now Heatran is interesting. It really depends. So either you go like full Spadef, like Lava Plume, Stealth Rock. I mean, it's not... Excadrill at least doesn't really come into it, but you don't come back into Excadrill, which sucks. But, it could be worse. Spadef Heatran is always reliable, and if you don't want rocks on it, you can run things like E-Power, HP Ice to, help check things like Thundurus. And generally, its utility is nowadays is just more I'll be annoying and spam status. But if you really want to be spamming status on a set with Lava Plume, then you want HP Ice. That's why I generally like Plume, Ice, Earth Power, because without Ice, then Gliscor is going to wall you all year. And Burn and Sand will generally get the job done. You also like Earth Power's coverage, not just against other Heatran, but for finishing off Ttars and hitting Tentacruels. Those are all really big. So... yes, that's Spadef Heatran for you. You can also just run a similar set, but with Modest and, lots of speed and max special attack. And you can run Magma Storm, more Fire Blast, but I like Magma Storm for... It's the same power as Fire Blast, a little less accuracy, but it's also got the extra 6% chip damage, works well with Protect, can't switch out, so it's really nasty, especially in Sand. And, yeah, I think HP Grass is a forgotten option on such sets. Some players like to run sub-protect Heatran. I think Heatran really needs all its coverage options at this point, so I'm not as crazy about it. But yeah, I generally like Grass on Heatran because it rips through Rotom, rips through Gastron, rips through the Slow Twins, Jellicent, Politoed. It's really big. And Ice is not as important because Garchomp doesn't like switching into you. And Gliscor, if it's Spadef Gliscor, then it will get outrun and 2 KO by your fire move. And if it's, offense, or if it's not fully Spadef Gliscor and it has speed, then it will get wiped out by Magma Storm on the switch with Rocks Up, especially with Modest. Modest is so crucial here, so I like Grass. Another option is, yeah, Sub-Protect is nice if you want to, like, EV it to have its subs survive Rotom Volt Switch, but I think the extra move is valuable. You can also use Magma Lava Plume. I really like this set because... Sometimes relying on Magma, not just because of the accuracy, but because of its PP, can really suck, especially in a metagame with so much Protect and Sub, of course. So Lava Plume is really nice for being reliable, and stacking Magma and Lava Plume Burn is really nice. And the Grass coverage isn't super necessary when you have the weapon of Burn at your disposal as well. So, and you can Lava Plume a Rotom, burn it, Protect, and then Magma Storm might finish it off. Stuff like that. So it's generally a nice tool to have. You can also do like Flamethrower, Toxic, or stuff, but I generally like the sets shown. Now Heatran generally will be used on those teams that like to switch around a little, like those balanced things, or on a team that likes to end the game quickly. So like it's a fixture on those because it scares the spikers so readily and is so difficult to switch into. Its defensive utility is a little less concrete nowadays, but it still is a Heatran, so you get it in on those bulky spikers and you threaten them out. Oh, Taunt is really nice too because you ruin a Stealth Rock attempt from Ttar, you ruin Jellicent or Slow Twins or Gastron trying to recover. So Taunt can definitely be fit on it, especially if you're going on a more offensive team and you're going on a more offensive team and you're not going to be making too much use of Protect. And you can also use different items. Air Balloon is really nice because it gives you some play against spikes. And Grass Gem is also cool for really ripping into those waters. Yeah, that was popular for a while. You can also do stuff like Will-O-Wisp. I'm not so crazy about Will-O-Wisp anymore, but a nice idea with Balloon Tran is a lot of when you can't. And this one definitely likes Ice a little more to really have that good one-on-one matchup against things like Chomp and Gliscor. So a lot of the time, then Ttar will come in and try to pursue you to guarantee break that your balloon is broken. But that should be turned to your advantage because if you're running a Balloon Tran, then you should be pairing it with something like Zam or Reuniclus, generally Zam, because of its higher speed and to make up for Heatran's lower speed and weakness to common fighters and grounds. So, yeah, you're generally going to want to take advantage of the fact that Ttar is going to come in and pursue you, so you stay in Earth Power, buffet it with attacks, and suddenly the Ttar can no longer stave off your Zam. That's the kind of synergy you should be going for. Alright, that's Tran for you. Hippo. Hippo is nice. It's kind of like a rock. It's a combination of Rocks Gliscor and a Rocks Lando. The thing is that it doesn't have that fighting resist, so you are worse against Terrakion, which is big. But the ability to replace rain with sand is really nice, and recovery on top of that is just beautiful. So, and of course, it's also incredibly bulky. So, I think Whirlwind is generally the most reliable move. Ice Fang is nice, but being able to get a nice Stealth Rock hit on Rotom and force it out again is really valuable, as well as just generally being nice for anti-Calm Mind Reuniclus and being able to chase out a dangerous Sub-Thundurus or something. So I would generally go Whirlwinds. And the EV spread is, mystifying. It does, if you go physical defense, you are able to really sit on Excadrill. And, I should mention that Excadrill very rarely manages to find Swords Dance fittable in its moveset. I mean, if you want to try it, go for it, but it's generally not going to do too much because of the faster pace. Generally, it prefers Protect or Rocks or Coverage to accentuate its offensive or defensive ability. And you think, doesn't Swords Dance accentuate its offensive ability? But, it's not immediate. It needs a free turn, whereas Rock Slide, for example, or even Toxic, is immediate. So, immediately makes it threatening against something like a Thundurus Therian, whereas Swords Dance, not so effective. So yeah, physical defense Hippo, good against Exca, and special defense Hippo is nice because it can switch into stuff like Politoed. It can check Thundurus fairly decently. I mean, it doesn't like taking Grass Knot, so I think this is less valuable. And which another reason why it shouldn't really be used to stave off Zam anymore, because Grass Knot is more popular. But before that, then it was decent against them at least. So yeah, nowadays I would definitely go with the physical defense spread, which is still good against Terrakion, Garchomp, Dragonite, and Excadrill, of course, being the big one. And you're still fine. You're still very good at even against staving off Landorus. I mean, yeah, you can also Ice Fang on it. If you have Stealth Rock elsewhere, you can definitely run Ice Fang, Whirlwind, and just have a full utility Hippo. So yeah, a lot of stuff Hippo can do. It's fairly underexplored. I would like to see more Hippo in the future. It's just fairly tough to build with because it doesn't come with that fight resist, and it's not as offensively potent. But I think it's got some good potential for sure. So, yes, yeah, and it's like Lando can also do things like U-turn on Gliscor or on Rotom, and Gliscor can do similar tricks. But Hippo is more helpless against it, but it's nothing that can't be overcome. I think Breloom's a great partner for Hippo. Like Breloom Excadrill, I think is a good setup generally, and then you go with other stuff like fighting resists. So Slowbro, Skarm, Ttar. I've always liked that team, but found it hard to really make it satisfying. It's just not. I think it's a little too defensive and doesn't have enough offensive tools, and the core isn't reliable enough. But that's the general idea. Hippo Heatran is also good. So, yeah, that's generally Hippo for you. It's fairly underexplored. Hydreigon, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to pass over Hydreigon. Not because I don't think it's good, but because I don't really think it's proven in this current metagame. It hasn't been seen in SPL for years. I do think it's really threatening, but it's hard to fit. I mean, like, if Garchomp has a hard time fitting on teams because of concrete defensive utility, Hydreigon has it even worse. At least it's got Dark Stab for Reuniclus and, like, Slow Twins and Jellicent, but it's really hard. It's really hard to justify. So, yeah, there's, yeah, so I do think that Scarf and, like, Mixed and, you know, all sorts, it has such a great move pool and such interesting typing and good speed, so I do think it has potential for sure, but I think it has to be explored a little more at the time of this video. So, Infernape we skip. Jellicent. Jelly is when you want to go all in on destroying Rain because Tentacruel will not spin on you. I think the most reliable set is Nightshade for subbing Garas and subbing Tennas and, you know, just Toxicroak even. It's just generally no nonsense because Scald can be really weak. And for the spread, you either go bold max defense to really, you know, give yourself as much leeway against Excadrill as possible, or you go with, I like Timid personally, because you're never getting speed crept by Ttar, and, or not Timid, but this spread. Basically, you outspeed Rotom, and it's really nice because Rotom has a pathetic HP stat, and Nightshade does a lot. So, you can run Calm, you know, shrug off Latios Draco Meteor a little more, you can run Bold, you can run Timid. I don't even know if this is more efficient. Okay, it is technically more efficient to run Timid. So yeah, I support Timid Jellicent. So yeah, generally speed is good on it. It's harder to slap on teams now because it doesn't really go with Excadrill as nicely. It's just because, I don't know, it's tough to say. You could make an argument for it, but generally you are going to see Jellicent on teams that are aggressive. The Alakazam variety. They're really going all in on those hazards to shut the opponent down and let Zam loose. So, that's where Jelly generally fits. Yeah, I've always been a big Jellicent fan. In recent years, it's become more specific, but still a fantastic Pokemon. So, but yeah, fairly specific in its application nowadays. Jirachi doesn't really fit on Sand. It's really, I mean, you could say that, like, sub 3 attack sets were popular a few years ago, but then Excadrill popped up, and I don't know. I think Jellicent is almost in a Hydreigon category. Obviously, Jirachi's ability to take on Alakazam, Reuniclus, and Draco Meteors, and even Tornadus is really nice, but it just offers so little in return. And generally, that special defense role it takes is already done by Ttar, so it's just not a good idea to take on that second harsh ground weak Pokemon that, you know, when you already have Tar. So Jirachi generally does not fit on Sand as much nowadays. Not that it's completely unviable, but we have enough Pokemon to go through without exploring the Pokemon that isn't really used on Sand much. It's reserved. Jirachi's generally reserved to patching up Weatherless, you know, just trying to hold it together. You know, the balance stuff and the Dragmax stuff. Keldeo. Keldeo is really nice on Sand. You don't see Scarf or Specs as much nowadays, which is definitely fair. You definitely like, people have definitely come to respect Keldeo's longevity and no longer making it weak to protect by letting it get worn down in Sand. So the most common standard set is Scald, Sword, and not Swords Dance, Secret Sword. And Toxic, which is just ruinous to Pokemon like Gastron and Jellicent and the Slow Twins and Latios. I mean, just any Protect Keldeo is ruinous to Latios. And that's the whole thing. Like, it's not just Toxic anymore. A lot of other moves are viable as well. I like Aqua Jet if I don't have a T-Wave Tar to break Zam's Sash. Because that way you go from being completely victimized by Zam to suddenly, you know, putting it in range for, you know, all those other Pokemon where it would otherwise 1v1 because of the Sash. So you take away a Pokemon it beats. Roar can be fun for, like, dragging in Ttar and making it take spikes and chasing it out. Phasing is generally underappreciated in Black and White for that reason. Just making it take a lot of damage so that you can force damage on it and then win later with your Psychics. But I would generally say that's more fringe. HP Ice is, you know, fairly decent, but my favorite move is in the last slot generally Hydro Pump nowadays, simply because you no longer allow Reuniclus to counter you. Now, it's not really a hard counter because Reuniclus does not want to be switching into offensive threats and recovering, because that just makes it easier for Ttar to trap it. So if you're fine with just trapping Reuniclus with your, you know, max attack Ttar, that's what I would recommend, because Scald will force it to recover. If you're fine with that, then that's fine. But Hydro Pump is nice just for the secondary, like, really strong option. And you take away Reuniclus as a counter. You just slam it on the switch. So it's nice, just because Protect Keldeo is nice in general. Sub is also nice. Like, Sub Calm Mind, I think is okay, but I think Sub Protect is generally nicer, because you keep the benefits of Protect. We use this on a team in SPL, and you completely dumpster Tentacruel. So I do like Sub Protect a lot as well. And yeah, it's just a great set. So, and Keldeo in general, this has become its role on Sand. You generally won't see like Specs or Scarf anymore, which is strange, but you know, not too strange. I'm not saying they're unviable. That's just, at the time of this video, that's what's in vogue. And I would argue that it's probably better, just because leftovers are so key for not letting you, just die. Alright, Lando. Lando does a lot, obviously. So it's hard to, well, okay, the main sets, you already know Choice Scarf, I'm sure. If you play competitive Pokemon at all, you know Scarf Lando uses Scarf, and or what it does. And here you run HP Ice because it's black and white, and you want that coverage. I personally don't like max speed Scarf Lando. I think it's a waste. I drop it down to speed for Scarf Politoed because it's enough to outrun Dragonite as well. And then plus attack is really nice, and then you get some defense EVs, or you can use special attack EVs. You can really EV it any way you want. I've even run on some teams Lax Scarf Lando just so it actually takes hits nicely, and that's fine as well. You can give it special attack, defense, and HP EVs. Really, however you like. The last move slot is interesting too. Stone Edge is nice for giving you that one-on-one option against Thundurus Therian, which is pretty important against Rain. But I also like Stealth Rock as a secondary Stealth Rocker alongside Ttar. When you don't really want to put rocks on anything else, but you don't want your only rocker to be Ttar, and you happen to have a Scarf Lando, I would definitely put rocks on it. Knockoff is also good for messing with Skarmory and Rotom and just bulky Pokemon like Slowbro in general. I think it's better than Toxic. That was a misclick. So definitely got some good options. Explosion is okay. Punishment is decent anti-Reuniclus insurance, but I would generally go with the other options. Now, the most defining Lando moveset to me is its support set. I mean, Lando is such a threat when it can switch moves, even with a defensive spread, then that I just feel it's such a waste to run Scarf. So I think most Lando that aren't Choice and have EQ, HP Ice, and maybe U-turn are just hugely threatening. You can run all sorts of spreads. I think Naive is very popular for outrunning Drill, and yeah, but as long as you have a lot of defense investment, then it's fine, because this is like the perfect anti-Drill rocker because it intimidates it and outspeeds so it's just a great Pokemon overall. Massively threatening. All sorts of ways to EV it. Hit the calc. Max speed if you like. A lot of people do. So yeah, really fantastic Pokemon. And yeah, this is its definitive set. Of course, a lot of players like to go more offensive now. Like in that last slot, or actually before I go into those other sets, I should mention the Fighting Gem Lando, creation of Jirachi with 2 E's. That's the user. And this set is great because it destroys Skarmory and is just excuse me, incredibly hard to wall in general. I mean, you're not taking hits with Slowbro from a Swords Dance Earthquake. So the thing about this Lando and other offensive Landos is that you are not going to be a good check to Terrakion, Excadrill, Garchomp, D-Knight anymore. So I really recommend something like a Slowbro or a Skarmory alongside it to help out in that regard, or at least have enough fast offensive firepower to make up for that deficiency. Of course, Zam is always a good fit because this generally fits on Spike's teams, but it also doesn't have to fit on Spike's teams. It can just fit on those regular win-fast offense teams. So this set is good. Gravity is good. Sub-gravity or sub-gravity Smackdown is also good. You can even run Rock Polish for late game sweeps. It's really nice. I don't think Double Dance is too good anymore, unfortunately, but if you're really feeling like it. And a good set you can even run is this. You can just treat it like a regular Lando early on, maybe with some more offensive investment, but still that's great. You just run your EQ, Ice, U-turn early on. Maybe you get to give it some defense investment just to make it a good check to stuff, because it's still going to be offensively potent either way. And then you have the late game option of going for Rock Polish. If you have rocks on something else, then it's also a great set. So yeah, that's Lando for you. I mean, it has a lot of room for experimentation, of course, but yeah, that's generally what it does, and it fits on all kinds of teams. The super fast offense teams, the teams that like to stay alive, the teams that like to... The Spikes teams that like to win aggressively. It's just great. Although on those, it competes with Gliscor more because of its... it can't go toe-to-toe with a Rotom like Gliscor can. Alright, Latios we generally ignore because we need Latios' power. Specs, Scarf, I mean, I don't really have to talk about this very much. Latios is big because it checks Keldeo. It's the de facto check to Keldeo, and it checks Thundurus Therian, and that's really huge. As soon as you start building without Latios, then you're going to notice, oh man, Thundurus destroys this. Not that you are obliged to use Latios, of course, but... you really generally appreciate Latios' qualities in general, just because it's so fast and has such great offensive, defensive utility. So I don't need to show Spec, Scarf. I mean, Draco, Surf, Trick, Ruin, Ferrothorn, Draco Bomb, everything. Lure in Ttar and weaken it. If Ttar's already been weakened, then it's just impossible to deal with. You trick your Pharaoh or defensive Jirachi or whatever. And yeah, Calm Mind. Refer to the Rain video if you really want more of an explanation for Latios. The only set I want to mention is something that's popped up this SPL, which is Colbur Berry, which basically allows you to survive an encounter with Ttar more effectively. And it's really simple, but it makes a big difference. So this lets you be even more forceful with how you play Latios, because now you're not just forcing the Ttar encounter, but you're even also able to survive it potentially, so you can switch out and then come back in and bomb it again later, or you can just stay in and trade blows and finish it off. The last move has been a couple things, but my favorite has been Roar, as demonstrated by Finch. So yeah, I believe Solomon was the first to use this Colbur Lati, this SPL. It's a really nice set. And I like Roar. You can also do stuff like Grass Knot. You can use a Hidden Power. I think Finch used a Hidden Power on his once, and Roar the first time, and HP Fighting the second. But yeah, yeah, that's Colbur Latios for you. Just really forces the issue. And there's a lot of other moves. I'm sure you could run Dragon Pulse or Psyshock. I really like Psyshock, actually. Don't use Psyshock on Specs or Scarf most of the time, just because it's such a bad move to lock into against Sand. But if you're trying to trick and pick apart Rain, then it's definitely really valuable for being able to destroy Tentacruel. So, Magnezone... Magnezone from the DragMag videos. I think I think an underrated set is Specs on Sand, just because it's a threat in its own right. When you give it Volt Switch, first of all, and when you give it a Stab Flash Cannon to completely destroy most ground types that aren't Gastrodon. I mean, even Extradon doesn't like switching into Specs HP Fire. So otherwise, Gliscor, Lando, Garchomp, they don't want to switch into Flash Cannon, so you get a strong Volt Switch. And if Flash Cannon is just a generally spammable move, because half the resists don't want to switch into it. Rotom and Heatran and Ttar don't really want to switch into a Specs T-Bolt or Volt Switch. So I think Specs Zone is very underrated. So Volt Switch, T-Bolt, Flash Cannon, HP Fire, modest. Pretty hard to fit on Sand Zone, but there are a couple structures that can make use of it. Generally, they use its forcefulness and then like a good defensive core to switch around, because Zone doesn't do much defensively, but what it enables, specifically SD Gliscor, makes it worthwhile. Mamo is same as Rain. I mean, it rips through so much. It's Ice Shard is so nice against Thundurus and Dragons and just in general, and lots of different sets. I think Life Orb is almost forgotten on Mamo, which is a shame because it's so strong, especially with Rotom being Spadef, as it needs to be, in fairness. But yeah, its superpower destroys it, just clocks it, and Pharaoh, and Life Orb Icicle Crashes and EQs are so tough to switch into. A lot of people like sub in that last slot to take advantage of switches, which, fair, and they like Never Melt Ice alongside it, which also fair. I think the Choice Band Wave has mostly died down. But yeah, I think either this set or Life Orb. I do think Life Orb is very forgotten. It's just terrifyingly strong. So yeah, you generally run this kind of like in a Garchomp-esque wall-breaking way, except you really rip through Gliscor. So is my stuff still playing? Oh, it's not. Okay. All right. Ninetales we ignore because Sun is no longer viable. Polito we ignore because this is Sand. Reuniclus, Calm Mind with Magic Art, of course. Calm Mind, Recover. And this is generally for those teams that like to go the distance, but it needs spikes. I don't think there have been a couple teams. I know Finch had one, but I don't think anyone really wants to run Reenaclus without spikes anymore. So the standard 2-move setup is Psyshock Focus Blast. You can run like HP Ice Focus Blast, and I don't like non-Focus Blast Reenaclus just because being walled by Excadrill feels so counterintuitive to me, considering how much those teams already struggle with it coming in and removing their spikes. And I think Psyshock is just the best coverage move alongside. I mean, I know Finch really likes HP Ice Focus Blast, but it is nice for being able to go toe-to-toe with faster teams with like aggressive Lando and Garchomp sets. Just having that ice coverage is really good, but I don't know. I'm more of a Psyshock guy just because of how good it is against. Well, it's also good against SC Gliscor. Okay, maybe HP Ice Focus Blast is not so bad, so we'll give that a shout. I mean, being walled by the Slow Twins kind of sucks, but yeah. Anyway, this is pretty much the standard Reenaclus now that I've really thought about it. Make sure you check your IVs, unless you're speed creeping, which I'm not really a fan of, but yeah. Reenaclus is actually fairly underexplored because it has so many cool support moves like T-Wave and Knockoff and even Future Sight, but yeah, generally I would say go with Focus Blast and HP Ice. Some Spadef EVs might be really nice on it, just to give it some leeway against rain-boosted water moves and like Thundurus and Latios. But you generally also really like all the physical defense you can get to stave off those Tars, and yeah, really nice with para support. Yeah. Oh, and the other set that's kind of forgotten. I mean, it doesn't have as much defensive utility because it doesn't have bulk investment, and it doesn't have leftovers or recovery. But Trick Room with Life Orb is a ferocious late game cleaner. Very good on those psychic spam kinds of teams. I like Shadow Ball on it a lot. HP Ice is nice for securing the Gliscor KO, so it's generally a trade-off. But I do like Shadow Ball, simply because this thing can be like just a wall breaker without Trick Room. Just being able to switch into things like Slowbro and Jellicent and scare them out. I mean, it depends on your team. If you're letting your hazards do the work alongside Pursuit, then maybe you can get away with HP Ice, because Gliscor does hover above those. And Gliscor is a really big deal, so worth considering at least. I'll give HP Ice the nod yet again. So yeah, that's Reenaclus for you. Bulk EVs can be, you know, whatever. Do your calcs against Latios and whatnot. And some defense. Alright, so that's Reenaclus for you. I usually call mine, of course. Rotom Wash. So the standard washer is Spadef for all those terrifying rain assaults. And you Will-O-Wisp, and if they have a Ferrothorn, they're very likely not going to be able to withstand it with any other Pokemon, which is why this Pokemon is such a great partner with Excadrill, because by burning the Ferrothorn, then you make it a lot easier for Excadrill to just come in and completely dominate it, limit it to 1 hazard max, and make it tough for Ferrothorn to last throughout the game. So Rotom is really valuable on those kinds of teams. And yeah, it can also function on those like Spikes Avoidance teams because of its Levitate and Longevity through Will-O-Wisp, which is really irritating, but generally you see it most on those Excadrill kinds of teams just because of how well it facilitates the crippling of Ferrothorn, which is so essential to those teams' functioning. So Hydro is not necessary. Some players like HP Ice, I know ABR is a big fan of that. I like it too just because of its reliability against Gliscor, as well as giving you improved options against Thundurus. And actually, it's weaker against Thundurus, but it's more reliable against it because it spams sub. And Garchomp as well, that's a big one. So it's you can go either way. I also think Offensive Rotom is a little underrated just because I think that its bulk is nice at the beginning of a match, but it also doesn't have a great HP. It also doesn't have a great HP stat or super reliable recovery, so it tends to get worn down. And in that regard, I like it to be a little more, fast and powerful. So it's definitely worth considering something like that, just to make it hit harder, especially with that meaty stab Hydro Pump, especially if they give you rain, because it'll generally function similarly. However, the nice thing about Calm is that you are not threatened out by Specs Latios, so you can take it, and if they Draco, then you have a super free trap with Ttar, and they've barely scratched you, so you can still check the Zam nicely, or you can stay in and Pain Split and be fine. So stuff like that. You have to be careful around Trig, of course, but that just comes with the territory of checking Latios. And I think Scarf Rotom is really good. You just put, or you can run HP Ice over Will-O-Wisp, but I also like Will-O-Wisp on it just to be threatening afterwards. So it really depends on how you're feeling, what your team is. But yeah, I think Wisp is really nice on it. I think Scarfborn was just great in general because, I mean, talk about crippling Ferrothorn, and it's just a great crippling move in general. If they have Gastron in particular, you really ruin them. So it's just a great move. I wouldn't rely. I mean, you can rely on it as your only Scarfer, but it's also nice if you have some backup speed. Again, in the form of Zam. Zam is essentially a Scarfer in how it plays most of the time because it's such a great revenge killer, and not too many Pokemon in Black and White boost their speed, and those that do are generally checkable regardless. So yeah, you can definitely unload that Scarf early and just be totally fine. I mean, I guess in a similar vein, you could probably run Specs for similar for similar rationale. But I like the idea of Scarf Hydro, cleaning up against Rain, just outspeeding and decking a Thundurus. Really good set, really underrated. So yeah, that's Rotom for you. Definitely, it's also good on those faster offensive teams just because of its pivoting abilities, letting you get in Heatran and Terrakion in safely. Salamence we're going to ignore for Hydreigon reasons. Scizor generally as well. Skarmory. Skarm is simple. You Spikes, Roost, and then you're choosing between... Oh, Whirlwind, of course. Then you're choosing between Taunt, Brave Bird, and Stealth Rock. And the item choice... Well, if you don't have an attack... If you don't have Brave Bird, then you 100% need Rocky Helmet, because otherwise you will get sat on by Drill forever. And with Rocky Helmet, then you actually completely destroy Drill. And if you have Brave Bird, then you can run lefties. That's pretty much it. So generally, Skarm will run. It can run Impish, but it still wants a lot of special defense EVs. And often it will run just straight up Careful, just because it's a very good Zam check. It's not, even if it runs HP Fire, that's not the end of the world. Immune to Spikes, Pursuit, Sand, Instant Recovery. It's generally very good at that. That's only if you have Brave Bird, though, of course. I think Drill Peck's generally too weak against Excadrill to really be threatening. I generally prefer Brave Bird, but yeah. And you can also, double up and run Brave Bird and Rocky Helmet, of course, but you need at least one way to damage Excadrill. That's the rule of thumb. So if you're running Taunt or Stealth Rock in that last slot, you 100% need Rocky Helmet. And with Brave Bird, then it can go either way. Really depends. Lefties does make it a much better Zam check, though, for sure. Especially with Max Spadef, you tank a lot of stuff. So yeah, Skarm is pretty simple. I mean, you get up your hazards, you check all the ground types. You have to really be careful about Rain. That's why Skarm is commonly paired with Jellicent. Now, the thing about Skarm and Jelly is that they are obviously ripped apart by Thundurus, and you have to be careful. Again, just throw on Latios as a natural fit, and that issue is more or less fixed. But they combined, you're good against Sand because of Skarm, and then Jellicent covers the Rain matchup to make up for Skarm's deficiency against Tentacruel. And then you are setting the stage beautifully for Zam. Like Skarm, Jelly, Zam is Skarm, Jelly, Latios, Zam, Ttar, and then your last is usually going to be something that can, take Rotom Wash on decently, and you have a great team. So Breloom's good. Special defensive Gliscor with like knockoff or toxic, that kind of thing can generally work. Heatran, is kind of Gliscor-esque in that regard, although I generally would prefer the Gliscor because of its ability to help against things like Excadrill and mainly Excadrill. But yeah, that's a very popular team, very popular style. And I'm not saying that's the only way to run Skarmory. Like Skarmory Reunic Zam is also quite popular and very good. But yeah, that's Skarm for you. And that's what it'll generally run. Starmie we ignore because it doesn't really fit on Sand well. And, I mean, it can, but it's just, I think you're better off using other Pokemon. Tentacruel we ignore. Terrakion is really nice because it's a great Volcarona counter in Sand. So you'd think, oh, this thing doesn't have defensive utility, and then you realize it's one of the best counters to one of the most dangerous Pokemon, potentially. So yeah, you run Close Combat, Stone Edge, and then your last two moves depend on your set. If you run Choice Band, they can be like X-Scissor, Quick Attack, Rock Slide, whatever you want, really. I think X-Scissor is good for Reuniclus, considering how dangerous that Pokemon can be. Quick Attack is nice for Zam. Rock Slide is reliable because we know how terrible Stone Edge is. And, yeah, great Pokemon. And Spadef boost is even helpful for, like, Thundurus. So, again, even if you're, you even live Zam at full health. So, great in Sand. And if you're playing Rain, then A, Rain can't switch into Terrakion at all. And B, make sure you keep up sand so you can actually check stuff and make it even more dangerous. And being able to check Volcarona is, of course, absolutely incredible. So the other popular set is Sub SD with Rock Gem is the most common last. I mean, Sloan was messing around with Air Balloon. I do think Air Balloon is great. I generally prefer Rock Polish over it. But generally you're going to be saying Swords Dance and then Sub or Rock Polish. I mean, some people like Taunt. I've enjoyed Stealth Rock before. Some people like Quick Attack and HP Ice on Life Orb sets. So Life Orb, Rock Gem, Air Balloon. Some people even like Protect for scouting Scarf Lando and Latios. So Terrakion has got a lot of really great options, basically. Protect is great set. Protect SD, leftovers to offset spikes. I've enjoyed that set before. But Rock Gem is also great. Protect, and or you can run Protect, HP Ice, and just become pretty much uncounterable. If you run HP Ice, run Life Orb. You will need the power boost. Otherwise, run like Rock Gem or Balloon, or also run Life Orb. Yeah, and then you can fit in your Sub, SD, Rock Polish. So that's pretty much what Rack runs. Quick Attack also decent. So yeah, it's a wall breaker in the vein of Garchomp and Mamoswine, but it's fast. It's got that great defensive utility, and it functions on a lot of different teams. I mean, you can have a backbone with it, but you can also run it on those like super aggressive, win fast offense teams. So generally pairs well with Latios for synergy reasons. Yeah. Alright, so Thundurus Therian I think has potential on sand, but like Hydreigon hasn't really been proven. Toxicroak, no. Ttar we already did. Volcarona, no. And there are a couple more Pokemon I want to go over, and then we're pretty much done. They're UU. The first one is... Where is it? It's Mew. Okay, there it is. Mew, I think Mienshao has potential, but again, same deal as those others. So Mew, we saw Solwyn use it this SPL. I think it's kind of fallen off a little because it struggles against things like Heatran and just getting overwhelmed by hazards and stuff. Yeah, passive damage, let's say what we mean. That's a little too much. Generally, this is its standard old spread, survives what's it called? Latios from full, Specs Meteor. So, yeah, this is a good set. It generally does get overwhelmed by hazards, but it can be the biggest pain to take out. And it's a great Reuniclus counter, and it generally causes a lot of switches, so it's great with spikes. With some good support, I think this Pokemon could definitely make a comeback soon. Yeah, a lot of times teams are going to be forced to take a burn with Ttar just to try and chase it out, and that's obviously very abusable with the litany of Psychics we have flying around. I suppose I should say, because Solwyn's Mew was supported by Latias, and Subcalm Mind Latias is very good as an anti-rain Pokemon, but it's still not... So, yeah, let's just mention Subcalm Mind Latias as an anti-rain Pokemon, but I think Calm Mind Gem Latios is, it works in a similar vein. So... yeah, so that's Mew, and now I think the last two Pokemon I want to mention are the Tornadus. Oh wait, no, that's this is Sand. So, yeah, Zapdos is, I mean, okay, I guess. It's got a potentially decent role for really messing with rain. So, but I'm gonna categorize it with like Thundurus on Sand. The last two are the Slow Twins, Slowbro and Slowking. So, one more thread I wanted to mention. It's also in Ruins of Elf. It's called like Black and White. Oh, it's a Black and White hub. So yeah, I think if you just go to Ruins of Elf and then you just use the Gen 5 tag here, then you will come across that thread. Black and White OU hub, yeah, here. So in this thread, then I made a big post about how much I love Slowking. I made a post about some other Pokemon too that I like. Yeah, this one. But the one on Slowking was just... I really love Slowking. Dragon Tail specifically, because alongside Excadrill, it's great against Reuniclus. So I'm just going to let that speak for itself rather than say... I'll also have this linked in the description. And, yeah, I'll leave that. As for... And Slowbro is great because on teams where you have, like, a more offensive Lando, or if you're using a Garchomp instead of a Lando, then Slowbro picks up the slack against Grounds, against Terrakion, and it's not a perfect Keldeo counter, but it also does help with Keldeo quite a bit. So, Slowbro is a great Pokemon, and I think it has a lot of potential as well in terms of its move pool. But generally, Scald, Slack, Ice Beam, Psyshock, Fire Blast, Thunder Wave, that kind of stuff. And Slowking, I think Spadef Slowbro and Physical Defense Slowking are actually pretty cool, and you can, mess with the opponent. Some bluff work to be done there. And Slowking has some moves that Slowbro doesn't, namely Dragon Tail and Nasty Plot. Those are the biggest ones. So, yeah, there's definitely potential for both. But yeah, they can both kind of go mixed on their defenses. But yeah. Alright, so I think that's more or less everything I wanted to mention. Let me check if RU has any Pokemon that I was forgetting to mention. Oh yeah, Milotic is good. I should definitely mention Milotic, because it's been seeing some use as SPL. Again, consult that discussion thread. Scald, Refresh, and it's kind of like Gastrodon in that it's a water type that is it's a great Keldeo check despite not resisting Secret Sword, and with Refresh then you shrug off Toxic. So in that regard it is better than Gastrodon. Of course it does not handle Rotom Wash and Thundurus like Gastrodon sometimes does, but that's for its teammates to do. And again, check out SPL for a great example. Finch's team was really nice with it. And that does remind me, there is one more Pokemon that is really good on sand, and I think it's NU. I don't think I'm missing anything in UU that I would use on sand. Or in RU, rather. Yeah, Quagsire, no. Rotomo, not really. Slowking, we did. Mola is okay, but I think the other... Wish is admittedly really nice, so I guess you could give it a try. But it would need, just like these other waters, they really need good anti-hazard support, or really go all in on stacking those spikes. These waters are not going to fit in on those, win fast offense teams. So make sure you have that really concrete anti-spikes plan, either matching them with your own or getting rid of them with Excadrill. And most of the time the answer is going to be Excadrill. And the same would go for Mola. And finally, that final Pokemon is Seismitoad. Just so before we get to it. Yeah, Seismitoad, there it is, and I think that's really it. Yeah, Seismitoad is really great because it's like Gastrodon, except it can refresh off Rotom Wash's Will-O-Wisp. You need Protect because otherwise you will... Like, let's say Rotom switches to... let's say you take a burn and then Rotom switches and you refresh, you'll still have lost 6% because of how much Black and White burn does. So if you get forced out immediately, like they switch to Breloom or something, then you will lose 6% at a time, and with spikes that can add up. So generally, Protect is just a great move on it because you're dishing out damage anyway. And I think, I mean, some people like Rocks on Seismitoad, but I think it struggles to fit in moves as is, so I really enjoy this set. I mean, EVs can vary, physical defense I generally think is good, but some special defense too for focused blasting Thunduruses. So, mix and match, again, hit up the damage calc. Something like this would probably be just dandy, but I'm sure it can be optimized. So, yeah, that's okay. I was just, the low volume is good. Yeah. Alright, so yeah, the Seismitoad is also really nice. Definitely, again, needs the anti-hazard support one way or another, just like these other bulky waters, but well worth the effort. It can be an incredible pain to switch into without a Toxic Orb Breloom. So, or a Spadef Gliscor. Spadef Gliscor is a sponge for weaker Scalds, but that's why like higher special attack Scalds like that of the Slow Twins and Milotic, especially those accompanied by Ice Beams, are good in that regard for busting past Spadef Gliscor. Of course, you can still cripple them with a knockoff, so that's why it's such a great Pokemon, and why we've seen a lot of Gliscor wars in the past. Check out my channel for an example of that, like the classic Finals game. That was a perfect example. And also an example of how different sand teams can go. How sand teams could be different specifically in their defensive vein anyway. Alright, I've been rambling on for a while now, and now I really have covered everything I wanted to. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Remember, check out all those resources that are in the description, and come join the Discord server, and you will have a lot of fun and learn a lot. And for further discussion on this, and yeah, I hope this helps you in your Black and White building sand endeavors. So, thanks for watching, hope this was useful and you enjoyed, and I will catch you next time.